Can you talk a little bit about how did you find your style per se? A lot of artists struggle with this.
It's very important to do what feels like you. So you need to understand what is feels like you and what you want to talk about, what you want to communicate. So I think that freedom is an enemy of creativity, really. For a long time, and even now, I'm struggling, like many artists, with this imposter syndrome. When you're constantly thinking that you're not good enough. I know there is artists who can do same things for decades, and that's not me. I got bored very quickly.
Welcome to the podcast, Tania Yakunova. Did I get it right?
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. Oh my God. That's this is so like behind the scenes where we every time I'm recording with someone, I'm like, can you tell me how to speak your name? Because there's so many people with different nationalities. And your name, you're Ukrainian, right?
Yes, exactly.
Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Same here. And I really appreciate your patience because we had some confusion and we're doing this again. Okay. So Tanya, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast because I think with every artist we look at, there's so many different things that, like, just I think the mere definition of being an artist is so different for all of us. How we really execute in our own practices, be in the visual arts, more beyond that, and how our careers and lives are based. Before we go there, I know you've won such amazing illustration awards. You worked with one of the biggest brands from Google, Pixel, Facebook, and all of these brands. You've had quite a great commercial success, right? I will talk about that, but I want before we go to where you are right now, let's go a little bit back. I would love first for you to introduce yourself, whatever that means to you, and then we'll talk about some early days of your life.
Okay, so I'm Tania Yakunova. I'm a visual artist, um, illustrator, uh, ceramist. I'm originally from Ukraine, and I've been born and raised in Kyiv, which is the capital of Ukraine, and I've been living in Ukraine and Kyiv for whole my life since this March. Because this March I moved to UK, London, and
Oh my
here
God, that's
where I
that's in
am
between the
now.
war.
Yes, yeah. So I'm still settling here.
How are you doing? First, I want to ask you that.
Yeah, I'm good. It's a lot of new things, and everything is going. And I, of course, imagine that it will be quicker and easier to get settled down. But yeah, it's good. It's good.
Did you move because of the war?
So I actually moved not as a refugee, but I get a global talent visa uh, to get to UK. It was planned. I planned it even before the war, but of course, war uh, impacted everything and changed everything, and it's now a mix of things. But it was planned decision even before.
Are you here by yourself, or do you have your family?
Oh, my family is scattered all over the Europe. So
Oh, so okay, let's talk a little bit about Ukrainian. Um, how was your upbringing, your years growing up there? What did you love the most about Ukraine?
I was raised in a suburb, always suburb of Kyiv, and it was a near big forest, and that's where my childhood.
So you spent your childhood looking at trees and I'm sure animals.
Exactly, exactly. And we have this very small, old but very lovely house with a beautiful garden because my
Is it
parents'
like the
hobby.
cottage house we see in these
Yes,
postcards?
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
god!
So
Yeah,
it's
you've lived my dream life.
it's like an old house because I think it was built by my grandfather or grandfather by their hands, and it's not big. It's 2 floors and it's quite a tiny house, but we have a beautiful garden because my parents are into gardening, and also huge forest just next to our street with pine trees and so on. So that was my life. And also every summer I spend with my cousin uh, in Carpathian Mountains where my grandparents lived. So there's even bigger
Oh wow.
forest there. So I was like, yeah, I was a child of nature in in some way. Yeah. So this idea of this beautiful garden, it's sticking with me actually, and about this home and garden and trees and woods and so on.
Okay, tell me something. This is a particular question specifically. Like you've got a lot of that success. What I just mentioned in the beginning of the episode. While you were living in Ukraine, while you were living in this small forest area in the suburban area. So I want to start by saying that a lot of us as artists think that we necessarily have to be um, in a bigger city, in a bigger country, in all of those things to get where to we need to. So like you probably are one of great examples to say that. But can you talk a little bit about how did you get that? Did you feel like staying there in a small secluded place? How has that contributed to your own career, like in good pros and cons both? Because this is, I think, a weightage that we all think about as artists, don't we? Like we think, oh, I am. Because I remember when I was living in a bigger city, I always thought that it was taking away the peace of life, like the quality, like the slow life that I think a lot of us desire. Versus when I'm in a smaller city, I always feel like I'm less exposed, or like opportunities and all of that. So tell me your experience.
Exactly, exactly. I'm still not sure which is better for me, really. I'm still trying to think what I want to do in the next 10 years. So for me, my path towards being an artist is not so straightforward, and it's in
Has it ever
some.
been?
Yeah, it's in. So I do not have a university level art degree. uh, I actually have degree in social science and social technologies, which is very weird. Yeah. On the other hand, I love drawing since I was a child,
Were
and
you
also
drawing also like all these years before you actually thought you'd do it professionally?
yeah. So I asked my parents to put me into the evening art school, and they did, but it was early years of after Soviet era, and this school wasn't like they are now. There wasn't too modern. It was very academic and Soviet approach, and it was boring. That's why I think I never get into art university, because I thought it will be boring too. So I only later in my 20s decided to change the path and start looking into the art again.
But did you
Yeah.
think at that point you wanted to do it as like a profession?
So, when I was a kid, I never, I never ever think what I will do in future. Really, I wasn't this dedicated kid. Like I want to be an artist, or I want to. My parents are journalists, so I thought maybe I will be journalist, maybe I will be something else. So I never had this very dedicated uh, attitude. So when I had been working in advertising for 4 years after the uni, and that's when I start thinking that that's like not really my thing. So I was working as a copywriter, so closer to the journalism, to the writing. And I decided I maybe want to do something with design. And while I've been studying design as an adult, I realized that what I'm really interested in is illustration, and that's how I get there. When I grow up and get a job, I moved to the city center. First of all, it doesn't make much sense because you're still in like you still have the same opportunity in the city center, city suburbs. That's the same, especially in Kiev, because Kiev is not really big city, not like London. Uh, yeah. So, but I think that being in Kiev was okay for me and was good for me, uh, especially when I started out.
How do can you elaborate on that? Like, how do you think it was good for you?
Yeah. So first of all, we now have internet and we have social media, so we are exposed to all the world. And I've been working with the clients all over the world and galleries all over the world. So you don't need to be in specific place now, and you even don't have to have specific agents for like things, because you can do it by yourself with the social media and some portfolio website and so on. So that is a I think it changed everything. Like 50 years ago that wasn't possible. And also in Ukraine we have very nice and very quite small but very great illustrators
Oh,
community.
wow, really?
Yes, and I think illustration in Ukraine is blooming. We have a lot of young artists. So it's like, we have this new generation of artists and illustrators. Uh, they are quite the same age. So I think like me or younger, or a little bit older, but this is still like very young scene, and yeah, we have this great pictorial illustration club, which they are doing a lot of exhibitions for Ukrainian artists inside Ukraine and outside of Ukraine. So it was great.
Amazing.
Yeah, but also of course, like one thing why I was planning to move to London was this is just what you said, to be like in the middle of everything, in the middle of culture, eye of a storm, this point where everything is happening. So because I felt that I'm like far away from many things, and I don't know how it will work out. Ask me in 5 years, I will tell you, is it worth it or not, because I'm not sure now.
I think a lot of those things are just in our minds a lot of times. Um, Everything does depend in I think at the end of the day is how we approach our work. Sometimes even being and how we feel about it, I think. And also, I think there's so much more to where we are and what we do than just where we live. There's so much more that goes
Yeah,
into it.
I exact. That's true. Absolutely, that's true.
For starters, let's talk about like, you had these amazing projects with, one of these incredible brands that are today, like, Google, Facebook, and all of these brands. And you were still in Ukraine, you were still living in Kiev. Can you talk about how those happened? What was your first, let's start with what was your first real project that paid you? And you felt like, okay, now I could do this for a living.
I need to say that after quitting my job as a copywriter in creative agency, I be- become a full-time illustrator, but not the freelance freelance kind of illustrator. So I joined my first illustrator work as an illustrator. I don't know how to say it correctly. Was in a motion design studio, and I was illustrating for these small motion
Videos.
videos. Exactly. So that was my first job.
And at that point, what kind of work were you doing? Like, you have a very specific style today. At that point, did you know what style meant?
Now, at that point, I was doing like when you're working as an in-house illustrator, you probably be doing more like what they say to you than something yours. But I always like from the day one, I had these side projects and weekend projects, which was my own clients and my freelancing. So I was full-time illustrator and freelancing on evenings and weekends. Yeah, and then I worked motion design studios and gaming studio, and then fintech startup. So it was three places where I work as a full-time in-house illustrator, and simultaneously taking a lot of side projects like freelance projects. It was tough time. It did some very good things to me and some not so good things to me, because it was, of course, exhausting to have uh, no time for anything, really. I won't recommend that doing that for too long, because for me it was like 4 years and it was too long.
Goodness.
Yeah, but so I will be talking maybe only about my freelance projects, because that's where I was growing as an artist, because on my in-house position I was earning money mostly. That's it. So, and making friends maybe.
Ah, that's the good part.
Yes, yes, that's a good part, because you grow your community also when you work in-house. Yeah, so I think my first big project was not long after I finished. I took several courses about graphic design and then illustration and then lettering, and not long after I finished one, I had this uh, student project, and I put it on a Behance, which is a portfolio website, and at that time it was very useful. I'm not sure it's the same good now, but that time it was very, very great. And big Ukrainian client that it was this kind of fashion cosmetic store, and they did uh, promotion together with Visa Gold, and they came to me and said, "We like this style. Can you do it? Can you do the illustrations for us?" And it was huge for me. It was like, wow. And we did it in my style, which was very nice. And that was, I think, my first big project.
What about finding your style? How someone, for someone, who didn't come from I think there are always pros and cons to things. When you don't come from an art school, I think the good thing is you do not really care about so much of building a style. You're just navigating as you're going, moving forward. You have a very specific style where you have these exaggerated figures. You have these like these organic shapes, and I feel like it's it's such a modern way of very similar objects, like nature and then women. And I really love how you also mix figures, organic shapes with geometry a lot of times. And can you talk a little bit about how did you find your style per se? A lot of artists struggle with this, where they do not know how to go there, how to reach that point where they feel like, okay, this feels like me, this is something I want to do consistently. Or also, I think you've also evolved your style not only in digital, but you've also taken it, you do traditional medias also, you also do ceramics now, which is an addition. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so first of all, I think you pointed it very, very nice, that it's very important to do what feels like you. And also, like what we say, style or visual language, I prefer this one. It's very, it's not static. It's changing all over the time, and it changed through my career too. And I think the way to find it, it's to combine what your what your strengths, like what you're good in doing, and what you enjoy doing, and what process do you enjoy. So for me, I love looking at illustrations that have, like this very a lot of small details and a lot of work, but that's not something I would do because I'm not that kind of person. I'm not that patient. Yeah, so you need to find something that feels right for you and that you're good in doing. And for me, my biggest inspiration is uh, avant-garde and modern art of 20th century and Bauhaus and all this. Like when you go to museum and you go to the 20th century and up, that's a place to be for me. So I think you can see that in my works, in colors and shapes and so on. And so I think that's the way you can find your visual language. So you need to understand what is feels like you, and what you want to talk about, what you want to communicate.
How did you figure what you want to talk about? Can you share that?
So I'm still trying to figure out. So I think I'm only in recent few years realized uh, topics that I'm interested in evoking. Like mostly it's about emotions, feelings, maybe dreams, uh, hopes, and so on. So that is, I think it's driven mostly by some inner things, maybe by memories and so on. Before that, when you work as a commercial illustrator, you often can be drifted away by briefs, and not yeah, and not to think too much what you as an artist want to do. So that's why I'm now more focused on my personal work, and I try to do it as much as possible.
How do you navigate this role of, I think, I've also had my own journey when I work with clients in different mediums, then having a journey of a very personal, um, where I feel like both have very unique challenges. I think working with someone is a whole learning curve where you're working for a client, you have to understand their requirement and you above them. Oh, sorry, them above you. Uh, the hard part, I think, for working with clients is working with clients. They're like the relationship part can be taxing sometimes because, negotiations but the good part of working with clients is, I think, for someone like me, I really enjoy the good part for me as client projects are I love to take up a challenge. So if they tell me, okay, this is what we're thinking about, it's like a very designer approach because I'm a trained designer. I'm not a trained artist. Like I figured myself out there. But my work, my how I was trained as a designer, okay, this is a problem. Like now my creativity finds how I reach from here to where a client expects. And that I really enjoy. But when you're working for yourself, I think this is the hardest part because now you are your boss, nobody has it, you don't have to change it, you have to do nothing. You can do whatever you want. But you have to figure out what is that brief that you need today or what is that point that you're looking for. And that I feel is so incredibly hard. Oh my God. Can you share your own experience?
So I think that freedom is it's enemy of creativity, really.
I do agree. I feel like I also perform really well when there's when you put me in a box, like not in that sense of mental box, but tell me like this is something like a few restrictions, and then my brain starts to work in such fantastic ways. Like I feel like, oh my God, I didn't know I had it in me, or like I could think of something like this.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I totally see what you're talking about, because that's the same for me, and I also came from design perspective. And what I like in working for brief is these restrictions that make you come up with ideas that you didn't know you have. So, and that's amazing. And these restrictions put you in the position where your brain need to find other ways, and these ways make what you do interesting. I agree with that. And this is have so I'm especially when I was teaching arts classes, I um, looked into how brain works and how brain create ideas, and that's just like how brain works. If you have total freedom, it will go to this,
All over the place.
yeah. So like imagine your brain like a field with a fold with a grass, and you have to connect two dots. Two dots is your neurons actually. And if you have a chaussee, if you have big road on this field, your brain will always go this way, because that's a energy sufficient way to do it. So to create something new, you have to put these dots like in a places where they are not intent to be. This way, you need to go through the grass and do new road, new like tiny road to go somewhere else. And that's what brief do to you. They say, connect these two unconnectable things and give us some sketches. And you're like, what? And then you start to thinking and connecting this.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So that's a good thing about working with brief. Bad things that it's not giving you this freedom to talk always about what you're interested in.
Shape it in your own way, take it in a new direction. Not all clients want that because they, of course, have another purpose, and that may not always align with your own intention.
Even if they are very like we trust you and so on, the topic might be not what you're like, not what you're interested. Yes, like passion, right? So it can mean a lot of creative freedom, but it's still not your thoughts, like not your topic. And I think when it comes to your own art, so yeah, it's kind of, for me it's also kind of give myself some restrictions, and those restrictions can be format or colors, or how I want to approach that. I've tried to I have this credo, which is try to make most convincing thing with less of the, how you say it, I don't know how to say it in English, let me think. So it's with a minimal resources to do maximum impact. So what I mean by minimal resources is to make it like minimalistic but bold, right? To use these shapes. Why I use these shapes is not because like there's reason for them, because for me shapes are emotional and composition are emotional. So you can, even without putting any specific object on a canvas or on something, you can evoke emotions through the shapes. And that's what all the Bauhaus and artists of 20th century is about. So abstract things that evoke emotions.
Abstract, your work is a very good blend of abstract but figurative. Like the figure is there.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm feeling like I'm very much excited by abstract art, but my art is not really abstract. It's something in between, because I think composition is very important part.
Because we're trained in design. To me, also, I think I really look at compositions for me.
But I understand what you're talking about, but about it's hard to do your own thing. But now I feel, maybe because of all this experience that I've been through for last years and war and all the, I have a lot of things in my head that are ready to go out, and so I'm not so much struggling about creating ideas anymore, because I already trained my brain pretty good of not going straight forward. So I think all the previous briefs was like training, and now even when I think about some ideas I want to communicate, I want to put on the on I don't know, on the format, on the canvas, I already have this other way of thinking.
What do you think has been the most difficult thing for you all these years, like being an artist?
Wow, that's a hard question. I think for a long time, and even now, I'm struggling, like many artists, with this imposter syndrome. When you're constantly thinking that you're not good enough, and also I got bored very quickly of. So I know there is artists who can do same things for decades, and that's not me. I got bored very quickly. So always trying to move. And for commercial artists, it can be quite challenging too, because like clients expect you to do the same thing, and you change something, and then you like, here's something new, and they're okay, we like that something old. So yeah, so I think these two things are most.
What are you looking forward to in the next, like, what excites you? What is something that you want to work on as an artist, as a creative?
Yeah, I would like to go further with my uh, own projects, on things like being an artist. I don't mind collaborating with brands and so on, but I would really love to explore more about what's about me.
What
What?
your own ideas? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, because I think that's something that many artists want to do, because what you're doing, it's first of all, it's you. As I said, when you're trying to find your visual language, is what you're about, what feels like you. And now I feel like I want to explore more what feels like
And I
me.
think life experiences also. Um, you've gone through a major experience in your life. Like, it's not something that you go through every day, and I wish nobody does. But when like for me, I also felt the same way. Anytime I've had a major experience, be it good or bad, after my mom's loss, I think I had there's a huge resistance and block I had creatively, but also so much, like you said, there's so much I feel like I want to say and share. And I don't know how that translates, but I know that emotionally there's so much stored in me that I know is looking for a way to come out.
Exactly. So that's exactly what I felt like when the war started.
How was it? Can you talk a little bit? If you're comfortable.
So I think it was most terrible, scary day in my life. I was quite expecting it. I was checking news constantly. Yeah, and so it wasn't, but it was. It still wasn't. You still can't prepare yourself for that. So even in the night before, I was checking news and I was seeing these signs that it's starting this night. Like for instance, Russia closed their air air border with Ukraine, so no Russian civil plane can fly there. So it's like this very red flag. Yeah, so you can, but still you can. And okay, I will go sleep. And in 3 hours, I woke up because my mom called me and said that war started and they are shelling all Ukraine, which is why I wasn't expecting that there will be like going all in into shelling whole country, because Ukraine is huge. And
Okay.
yeah, and we evacuated, all of us evacuated, all my family evacuated from Kyiv, and we go to the west of Ukraine, which was considered more safe part. And we stayed there for my parents went to Germany and have protection there, and they're still living in Germany. And I went back to Kyiv in a few months when there was safer there. But I also have this block for a first 2 weeks, I think. But then I started to just draw because I need to let it all out. And first it was
Yeah.
all about the war and the pain, and it was like
Yeah.
so painful. And those were very different images that what I did before, and it was
Beautiful.
very strange to do with my visual language. Was used to
Yeah.
be very cherish and happy to do this
Yeah.
very uh, scary and difficult illustrations.
Everything is always evolving. There's nothing that we can erase from our experiences, and it truly shapes who we are as artists. And like as you said this, I was just thinking about what, as a person who's looking at someone's work, art, like what would interest me more? A happy person altogether, always all illustrations, or an expression of different emotions, life a person has experienced via their art. And really, like, even as a viewer, I would really like to see all of those parts. And it's so strange that as artists, we feel so confused about it, because we feel like, oh, my work used to look like a certain way, and it's now it's happy. It's no, oh, it's not happy. Like, but we forget that, you know what? At the end of the day, the art that we're making is the life we're living. Like, it's, if we really want to be authentic, then we have to be really authentic and understand that this is just not a piece of paper and paints. It is not what it looks, it is also what we've lived and what it feels like to us at that point.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you totally. And yeah, so my work changed like dramatically. Even now when I'm, of course, war related art was different, but even now when it's not all war related, it's still very different.
Yeah. You've evolved, your life has changed, you had to move, you've seen things, you've experienced things, and that shapes you. It builds character also, I feel, as we live life. I think as we live life, it adds more layers and layers and layers and layers. And it's like, in India, like, how do I say this? In India, there's a very common saying in Hindi, our native language, which says like, "धूप में बाल uh, सफेद नहीं किए," which typically means in English is that they've not grayed their hair in sunlight. Basically, it means that they have the gray hair is a sign of experience and life lived, and the layers and multitudes of experiences and learnings they've had. It is not like something they've gone and died. So, uh, gone and died is one flat color, versus the graying of a hair means there are so many days and experiences and moments and learnings they've had that brought that outcome. So it's like, I think, similarly for us.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like much more conscious now about myself and about what I'm doing, about my work, about my art than ever before. So that's one of the reasons that I want to involve more into my own things and my own projects, because I now have something to say, and I haven't had that much of an urge before.
Thank you so much, Tanya. It was so nice speaking to you, and I wish I
Thank you
could
for
more.
having me.
No, absolutely. But before I let you go, tell me something that you're working on now. Now that you're London, share where you are so that anyone who's listening to this, make sure you hit her up. Maybe you can find a friend or more. We have a lot of listeners from all over the world. And if you're working on something that we can share, support, lift you up, please.
Yeah, so now I'm in London. I'm living in southwest London, if that makes sense. um,
So
so
anyone who's from the area, make sure if you're listening to this episode, say hi to Tanya.
I would love to make friends here because you know I'm new here. So and what I'm working about is actually about my own pieces. So one of them you can see behind.
I can see. I saw your
Yeah,
video also.
yeah, and this is an ongoing series about mostly emotions and my own my own experience. I finished series of illustrations or arts that are calling "No One Ever Comes Here," which is about places and places inside us, which are
Mm.
hidden normally. And I work with a mix of digital and how you call it, traditional media. So I
Yeah.
do them in graphite, and then I scan
Okay.
them, and then I finish them in
Okay.
digital.
Make sure, can you mention your Instagram website for people to find you?
So it's Tania Yakunova. Yes.
For anyone who wants to visit, and I highly encourage, because Tanya has a beautiful Instagram account and you can see a lot of her work. I will link everything in the show notes episode. We'll link some of her work and direct links of her website.
And also I do print and original drops time to time. So make sure you're
So I
checking it.
will take all that information from you, your website and everything, and we'll link everything in the episode of this, in the show notes of this episode. So make sure you do listen and you do go check this ad on our website. Thank you so much, Tanya. You were wonderful. And I really hope you know, I know the feeling of being in a new place, feeling like an outsider, and the process it takes to build a home, to feel at home, actually, not only build a home. And I only hope that next time we speak, you have a blooming home, you feel at home, and you have all light in the world.
Thank you so much.